Hey there, I'm Cait Sarazin. I'm a trauma-informed somatic coach, and today I want to talk to you about sometimes why therapy isn't working. And I first want to say therapy is a beautiful modality. It's a great tool. It helps a lot of people. And like any other tool, including somatic work, it has a time and a place when it's most effective. And sometimes what happens in therapy is most talk therapy modalities focus on going to the apex of the story, telling that story, and hoping to get a different meaning from it, or talking through dynamics that happened in childhood. And the reason why we repeat triggers or have the same limiting beliefs or have the same circumstances in our lives happen over and over again is something in the past got stuck. Something, and that something is in our physiology. So when trauma or an event that just overwhelms our nervous system happens, at that time, there's something that didn't get to happen, or happened too fast, or not enough, something was missing, or we didn't get to protect ourselves. Our natural impulses were thwarted. And when that happens, it becomes stuck. The energy becomes locked in our bodies, and there's a specific meaning and way we reconcile the event that gets stuck in our brains. And that's why so often these things repeat, is because our body is trying to find a way to restore it. Like something is wrong, this didn't get to happen. It's kind of like a tape that just skips over and over. It's stuck on something. And that's not something that can be talked through, because when something like that happens, when it's a traumatic event where we are overwhelmed, there are multiple sources of how we remember that event. So there's the cognitive memory that we're mostly familiar with. That's what's talked about and dealt with usually in talk therapy. And then there's the implicit memory. And the implicit memory includes our emotions at the time. It includes a behavior, which could be we needed to move, we needed to run, we needed to hide, we needed to speak up. It includes the meaning of the event. So if we, sometimes what happens is if we got attacked by a dog, we might start to think that like all dogs are bad. And trauma likes to generalize to keep us safe. Our brains are trying to keep us safe. So that might move to all over time, all animals are bad. Going outside is bad. Again, this is our brains trying to keep us safe. And then there's also the sensory information. So what could we see, hear, smell, or an image? Quite often our brains will create an image representation of what happened, kind of like dreams in our subconscious, when the original event information was too intense to contact directly. And what our jobs are in somatic work is to kind of reconnect this network of fragmented information and put it back together to figure out what didn't get to happen at the time and make a new meaning of what happened. And so in talk therapy, it's just targeting that cognitive piece. And what happens in talk therapy when you go to that apex, which is what often happens, tell me the most intense part of the story, we become overwhelmed all over again. We go right back into whatever our response was at the time. If it was we were being attacked and we couldn't fight back or we couldn't run, we might dissociate. And our bodies will take us right back there because we are going in with the same level of resource and safety that we had at that time, unless we've done a lot of work. And so what somatic healing does, somatic experiencing specifically, is if you imagine your life, your body, your experiences as like a river flowing along. And when something traumatic happens, a whirlpool happens in the middle of the river. And whenever you go past this, you get pulled in, you get sucked down. And in talk therapy, it's like, let's go to the center of the whirlpool. And we just get sucked back in. And so how we work in somatic healing is we start to build an anchor, a counter vortex on shore. And instead of going to the apex, the center, of that charged experience, we just go right on, we start right on the edge, right where that whirlpool goes back into being a river. And we pendulate back and forth from the anchor on shore, just the edge. We just take just enough of that charge, of that experience to digest it, to make it manageable, to make it not overwhelming. So we start to retrain your body and your mind that there's a different option, that we can go back on this experience and feel safe. We can go back on this experience and move through it and not get overwhelmed like we did initially. And how it works is that slowly over time, as you take the outer layer and you discharge the activation, the intensity, and we keep moving inward into that center of the vortex over time. And as we're doing that, we're discharging the intensity of that entire event. So by the time we actually get to the center, you've built up so much capacity and safety in your system, and we've deactivated so much of that charge that it's often not even a big deal anymore. And this approach gets us faster, farther. It's not overwhelming. It can actually even be fun. And what that allows for is then for talk therapy to be really effective. Then you're able to, every time you're able to discharge an event like that, you take those resources on with you to the next thing. So it might be a little bit easier to talk through other events, and it becomes more effective. You're able to stay with the experience more because you have more capacity and safety based on that earlier work. So ideally, we love to team treat in somatic work. So working with a therapist and a somatic healer is a great way to kind of take it from both sides. They marry really well together, but often don't work super well isolated without each other. So this might be why you're feeling kind of stuck in talk therapy. There are different approaches. Talk therapy is a top-down. You're starting with the brain and you're pushing down to the body. Somatic work is a bottom-up. We're starting with the body and that information, and then it goes up to the brain. So they marry really well when you put them together. If you are interested in doing somatic work, I do have a few spaces for one-on-one clients, and you can find out more about that on my website, soloandkicking.com. It's in the description. I hope that this was helpful for you. If it is, I love if you liked and subscribed, and I'll see you next time.